What's up, guys? Tim Little. Welcome back to Tactical Bass. And today's video, we're talking about 3 summertime techniques that a lot of people don't understand, but they work. Summertime bass fishing is an amazing time to be out on the water. You can catch a lot of fish. They're all over the fishery, whether they're shallow or deep, out on ledges, out off of grass. But a lot of times these fish school up out deep, and some of the best ways to catch them, a lot of guys don't even try. They don't understand the technique. So we have 3 different baits that I want to kind of go over today to help build confidence in the baits themselves for you guys, and hopefully you guys get enough confidence to go out and try it on your fishery. But these guys right here, we're talking about the Burrito swim bait, a spoon, flutter spoon, and a hair jig. The cool thing about these 3 baits is they all fish in the same area of the lake. If you're an offshore fisherman and your fish are keying in on bait, those 3 are staples in my offshore summertime fishing. So hopefully you guys are watching this video, you're like, oh yeah, I've blasted them on the Burrito. Oh yeah, I've blasted them on a flutter spoon. Oh yeah, the hair jig is awesome when they want something more subtle. But for those of you guys that haven't tried these techniques, you're missing out, and hopefully after today's video, you will understand a little bit more about them and have some confidence to throw them. So the Burrito is an awesome, awesome swim bait. This thing comes in 2 different sizes. It comes in a lot of sizes, but 2 main sizes I'm gonna talk about today. The 5-inch and the 6-inch. The 5-inch is a really easy, simple bait to throw. I mean, they both are. This is gonna require a little bit heavier rod, more of a swim bait rod. That's why I'm talking about this guy right here. But it is a bait that can be fished on bottom, just bottom crawling with that tail kicking, or it could be fishing, you could be fishing it up off of the bottom mid-column. It has such a great tail kick to it. You can literally feel that tail kick on the bait. Looks like we got storm brewing, but it's a silicone bait, crazy durable, but that 5-inch, you can throw it on your favorite, basically medium heavy or heavy jig rod. You don't even need a swim bait rod, but that Burrito is something that I throw out there on the ledges. I throw out on main lake points, rock piles, basically where you would throw your deep diving crankbait. This is an awesome alternative, and it has an awesome different swimming action, and the fish just choke it. But the Burrito is an awesome swim bait that I think a majority of people don't understand why it's so special. But that guy right there has caught a ton of fish for Matt and I. Again, we're fishing this on channel swings. We're fishing it out off of main lake points, anywhere where those fish are schooling. That is a tasty little snack for those guys. And then the 6-inch, like I said earlier, you need a swim bait rod. I like throwing on the 7.7 heavy X Pride, but I'll show you guys the size difference between the 2. This is more of an actual swim bait feeling bait. This feels more like a subtle chatterbait, if that makes sense. But this thing's heavier, gets down quicker, and it fishes more like a traditional larger size swim bait. I think the biggest Matt and I have caught on them are 8+ pounds, maybe a 9. Like, I don't know if Matt's gonna, I know I have an 8. I don't know. But anyways, that right there is the Burrito.
9 pounds, 10 ounces.
Again, summertime, you want that real aggressive kind of swimming action, swimming kick. And a lot of guys are catching a lot of big fish by throwing this Burrito. It's an awesome, awesome little swim bait that I think a lot of people aren't taking advantage of. But again, anytime you're fishing around bait fish and you want to throw a shad profile or a gizzard shad profile, that's another thing that makes this bait special. It just has a different belly to it. It's kind of a flat belly right here on bottom, so if you are crawling it, it just kind of just goes up and over any kind of rock or chunk rock down there on bottom. Doesn't get hung up fairly easily. And then again, just having that that taller midsection just mimics a gizzard shad or a big threadfin shad really, really well. Especially since Matt and I got to design a couple colors for Mike Bucca a couple years ago. We got to design this guy right here. It's called Tactical Shad. It's kind of a cross electric shad, Tennessee shad-esque kind of color, but it has that real good electric shad glitter in there that makes this thing really pop in the water. That is my favorite color. And then we also came out, pull this guy out too. This is our Tactical Gizzard Shad. So I'll show you guys the two. A little bit more subtle, kind of that pearl bronzy color in the light. But if you're on a fishery that has gizzard shad, this thing just gets munched. This thing gets chomped. Caught a lot of big fish on that guy. But the Tactical Shad and the Tactical Gizzard Shad are two awesome, awesome colors, and I don't know why. All right, next bait up before we get struck by lightning. Let's talk about heavy metal flutter spoons. Why do they work so well, and why do they look so weird in the package? Right, I remember before I started throwing these things, I thought they were like trolling baits, like salmon baits. Why would I be throwing a spoon for bass? But once I figured it out, it quickly became one of my favorite, you can ask Matt, one of my favorite summertime offshore techniques. When you're throwing a big old chunk of metal that looks like it should be like a license plate or something, and this isn't even that big, they get a lot bigger. The Ben Parker, the Magnum spoon. This is actually the mini mag. This is my favorite size by Nichols. That's the mini mag right there. Shattered glass color. If you need to get one color, it's that right there. But again, throwing this thing out there, I'm sitting in like 5 feet of water, so I'm not reeling this thing. I'm basically letting it fall on semi-taut line, and it's poof, poof, poof. It mimics a dying bait fish. And I promise you, the first bite that you get on throwing on a big spoon like this, you will remember, because it's gonna feel like getting struck like lightning. When you pop this thing up and it's whoo, 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 dong, it is so addicting. But that's what it's doing. It's basically falling at a real subtle rate, and it's flashing and twisting, and ooh, felt like I got whacked there. Maybe I just hit bottom. But it's mimicking a dying bait fish. So yes, you can cast out there and retrieve it, but the way this thing is angled and cupped, it just dances all along on that fall. And when those fish are offshore, when those fish are schooled up and they were up in the water column, I don't know that there's a better dying bait fish bait than this big hunk of metal. It's so weird, but it just works. Okay, a couple tips with throwing the flutter spoon. Okay, it doesn't matter if you're throwing the regular size flutter or the big spoons, okay, 8 or 9 inchers. You want to have the proper gear. Couple tips for you: make sure you always have a swivel tied onto the front of your spoon. That just eliminates line twists and nightmares later on. And then also, sometimes they eat this thing like they're supposed to and they get the hook in the mouth. Sometimes they hit it at the top where there's no hook and you're dong miss them. I like to put a little stinger treble just on a swivel that slides up and down my line. That way when this thing's falling and they either headshot or tail shot it, they get a treble hook. And I've actually caught several times, caught more than one fish on a fish on each hook. But the flutter spoon is such a special bait, and I think it gets overlooked because it looks overwhelming in the package. It doesn't look like it belongs in the bass fishing aisle. It looks like it should be in the trout or salmon aisle, but this thing works. And again, it's one of my favorite ways, if not my favorite way, to catch offshore schooling bass right now. But the flutter spoon is so much fun. So that's how I fish it. Again, it's really important not to just do slack line. You don't want your line laying on water. So you hop, and you just kind of walk it down, and you have a bow in your line, and you're feeling that thing, woof, 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 woo, hits bottom, reel down, hop, hop, woof, 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 toom. It's, again, so addicting. One other spoon I want to talk about real quick. This one's by Jackal. This one came out, I believe, last year. It's got a little different cup to it. What's cool about this spoon, it comes pre-rigged with a swivel, just like that Nichols. But this one actually works backwards. So if you're fishing around boat docks, or you're fishing along, I don't know, dam walls or laydowns, you can throw this thing out there and it will go back towards in reverse, if that makes sense. So a lot of times if you're fishing on, like, I don't know, Hartwell or Lanier, you're fishing around deeper docks, this guy works extremely well. Super sharp hook. Again, it's a Jackal high quality spoon, but that is a completely different action from the Nichols. But if you're just offshore and you're casting this thing, that Nichols is lights out. Again, you can go with the traditional, just the 5-inch flutter spoon. They have 4-inch, 5-inch, all different sizes. I really like the 5-inch if you want to throw something that you don't need a special rod for. And then if you're throwing a little bit larger spoons, this Mark 56 by Megabass, it's a 7.6 rated 15 to 30. It's more of a parabolic rod. It's basically their mag draft rod. It's an awesome mag draft rod, but it's a heavier duty treble hook baits, or a treble hook rod. So if you're throwing a bait with treble hooks, you know, this thing has some weight to it. You don't want that fish coming up and jumping and spitting that thing all over the place, throwing it out of its mouth. You want that rod to load and unload slowly so that that hook stays pinned. But guys, the flutter spoon, if you haven't thrown a spoon, you should really try it, because again, it catches them when other baits just won't. And then the only thing else to say about the flutter spoon, it's one of those techniques where less action is more. So again, you're just walking it down and letting the curvature of that, the bend in that spoon do all the work. You don't need to be ripping it all over the place. It's literally just walk it down. That's the biggest key. Have a little bow in your line. You don't want a straight line because it'll fall straight down. You want to have a little bit of bow in your line so it has free movement to do its magic. Once it hits bottom, reel down. You can do one big swing and then walk it down, or I like to hop, hop, and then let it go. That's it. All right, last but not least, I want to talk about this guy, this fluff ball right here, this little guy, the hair jig. Now, we talked about offshore schooling bass. We're talking about Tennessee River ledge fishing, right? We're talking about swim baits and flutter spoons. These are staples in this technique or in this style of fishing. The other one is this guy right here, the hair jig. Now, this is, woo, I'll wrap this one up. We got some wind coming. This is a technique that goes right in line with the other two. Same locations, same areas, same style of fishing. But when you want a bait that can get down, what we got going on here? We're gonna get blown away. When you want a bait that gets down, but doesn't have a lot of flash, doesn't have a lot of vibration, you need to be throwing a hair jig. It is super, super simple to fish. Basically, you'll fish it where you throw your favorite crankbait. Got a hurricane starting all of a sudden. I'm gonna get off the water here shortly. But basically, hit bottom, and then it's a real pause. This thing just gliding, having that fur down there, that hair down there, just works extremely well. I will link my favorite baits down below in the video description. But if you haven't played around with the hair jig, it's a fairly subtle bait that plays around right in this same category and gets bit. So if they're not eating that flutter spoon, they're not eating that crankbait, they're not eating the swim bait, try throwing a hair jig. But guys, I'm gonna get off the water. We got a big squall coming. If you learned something from this video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you guys on the next video.